So hey guys, welcome to this new video. I have Jared Sam with me again today. And today guys, we're going to talk about what films should do when it comes to video game adaptations, because there's a lot of bad ones. There's ones like Prince of Persia that work but could have been better still. So today's video is all about what should happen with video game adaptations into film and what can make them better. Another reason why we brought this up today is because, like, if you look at comic book movies, they weren't very good at one point, but now they're very good. People go to Dark Knight and Spider-Man and Avengers now because of how successful it finally works now. And so we think with video games it could work with that too, but it's all a matter of right writers and directors and everything. So this video is all about what we think should happen to make video game movies better. And the first and foremost thing, you guys, is we can't have U-Bowl direct another movie. If you look at that man's filmography, he has made so many bad movies, mostly about ruining video games in some ways. And the man can't direct a movie. He just can't do it. And he's ruined House of the Dead, which is a pretty decent game, but the movie ruined it. What else did he did? Like Far Cry and all this other garbage. And the man can't direct a movie. And I think right now, at this very minute, he should not be allowed to direct another movie.
Probably not.
Okay. So we both agree not to have U-Bowl direct another movie. So what's the point that you want to make?
So first thing I think they should do is consult. If you're not going to bring on the people who've actually created your video game franchise you're basing your movie off of, is heavily consult with them. You see this in Prince of Persia, where they brought in the guy who even created the original the 2D Prince of Persia games, and he was brought in, and I guess they talked with him on, okay, how would this work, and they decided that copying directly from either of the games wasn't the best idea.
Yeah, I think they should get a hold of some of the people, like say Crash Bandicoot wanted to make like an animated movie one day. Maybe consult Naughty Dog to say, hey, this is what we have going on. This is what we have an idea for a story. This is what we want to do with this character. What do you think? Yeah. If that doesn't work, what would you like us to do? Just stuff like that. Because like if you look at Super Mario Brothers, or if you look at like there's another really bad one called Wing Commander at one point. It's based off an arcade game. Those people didn't even contact those people. I mean, and even if they did, I mean, they clearly must have shoved their opinion away because the movie was terrible, and they had no idea how either movie was working as far as copying the game and getting it looking right on screen. Right. And that's just an example. If you really need to get some of these people, or at least one of those people, a part of these games involved with the movie too. I think Halo eventually wants to do it if it ever gets made. Yeah. It just needs to happen. It's for the better right now for getting video games to look right on the big screen.
Bungie, the people who make Halo, or at least they did before they went away. And, they have a big canon. They have a big, like the Halo Bible, they call it, of how all the backstory works. So I'm pretty sure if anyone tries to make a Halo movie, Bungie's going to go, well, here's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah. And the next point we want to make, you guys, is treat it like a movie and not like a game. A good example of this is, even though I did kind of like this movie on a camp level, but there's a scene in the movie Doom where they go into first person, and even though it looked neat on the screen, I think that's a good example of you're treating the movie too much like a game and not like a movie. And I'm worried that if other directors use that as kind of their visual aid for a good movie, I'm worried that other video game movies are going to treat them like a game. Like, for example, I don't want to see a Mario Bros. Movie where it's side-scrolling the whole time in blocks, because we can just go home and play the game. I mean, it kind of just ruins the point of why we're at the movie theater. We want to see the reasoning why Mario is the way he is in a game. He's not just this guy hitting blocks and going after this princess and all that stuff. So treat the movie like a movie.
And along with that, but don't throw away the entire roots. You have to understand what the game is actually about. Like if you're like the Resident Evil movies, for example. I haven't really seen the first two in any detail, but the third one, suddenly they're in the desert having giant gunfights on a convoy, and I've seen enough of Resident Evil 1, 2, 3 to go, there's no giant desert in that game. And like the first three games are all about, okay, where the monster's going to come from. I've got limited ammo, and I can't really aim correctly because the controls aren't very good. Mm-hmm. But on that note, it's still supposed to be scary, and all the Resident Evil movies seem to be let's put in a bunch of action. That'll totally work.
Is there any other points you wanted to make today, too, Jared?
Yeah. Oh, you also have to recognize what games would make good material, good story. Like,
there's some games out there that aren't meant to be good movies.
If you're going to make a Mario Brothers game, you're going to have to work pretty hard at coming up with a good story because the games usually are Mario collect X amount of items to go save Princess Y.
Yeah. And I guess another good example of a game that's lovable, we all love it, but it just won't make a good movie, is Tetris or Pac-Man. Those kind of things are, there's no story to them, and I don't think you can make a story for them. They're games. We like to play them as games. There's no storyline.
Yeah.
And even if you did make a storyline, I really have a hard time seeing something, like Christopher Nolan quality. Some games are not meant to be movies. And if, like I said, if you're gonna stick with, I would even go so far as to say stick with games that have cutscenes, because cutscenes somewhat get story involved. It doesn't have to have pure cutscenes the whole game, but maybe a good example, I guess, is even Halo. I mean, Halo has enough cutscenes that you can make a story off of it, with the right writers, of course.
Enough character interaction, I guess. Not cutscenes, but enough interaction between characters.
So, like, when they make movies, say, okay, Lieutenant Keyes is like this, Sergeant Johnson's like this, Master Chief is like this.
Yeah.
And so when we make a movie, we'll have to make sure we have those characteristics. Another thing we want to share to you guys is have more story depth and have more drama. Even to this day, I haven't seen a lot of video game adaptations that have the same, like, dramatic depth as, let's say, like Shawshank Redemption. And when I say story depth, I mean, like, kind of like with Dark Knight, it had a lot of political undertones, a lot of things that you would think a Batman movie can never do, and it went the distance. And I really wish there's more video game movies that did this. You kind of like, I didn't know that it could have this psychological depth. I didn't know it could, go this. So in some ways, even just surprise us with something that we would like, and it wouldn't ruin the game at the same time.
Yeah, I think you put it down there that we were talking about it before we filmed this, but. To that story depth, maybe you don't have to make a movie based strictly on the events of the game. Maybe we don't need a Metal Gear Solid movie telling us what went on in Metal Gear Solid 1. You could have a story telling us of how Solid Snake became that top agent that he gets to that they chose him to do this soul infiltration mission. You don't need to do the events of what happened in the game.
Yeah, like you could do let's say they are making a Metal Gear Solid movie. Maybe even have the movie about how Snake is as big as he is, why people always go to him, why he always has these missions in the games. You don't even have to have it strictly based on one of the games. Like, maybe reference it at one point. Like let's say, like, he walks by a room and there's an item that, like, oh, that was in Metal Gear Solid 3.
Put Snake in his iconic cardboard box. Maybe.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be like, okay, we're going to create a shot-for-shot remake of X scene that happened in the game.
Yeah, like, you can just like explain Snake, like, who he is, why he's on these missions, why people go to him. Have the movie about that, and have some fun action scenes along the way, kind of telling us why he earned this trust with this organization, why they always came back to him throughout the games. It doesn't always have to be strictly about a movie strictly based off Metal Gear Solid 1. Also, one thing I think that would be kind of neat, because we haven't really seen a lot of it, is have a director who grew up with the game and who is familiar with the content. I guess a good example of this would be, I think a good friend of mine and I were talking, like, what if Ridley Scott directed Assassin's Creed? Well, here would be the problem with that. Ridley Scott didn't grow up with Assassin's Creed. But, like, let's say you get a director like Edgar Wright, who even in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World had a lot of video game elements attached to the movie. He probably grew up with some games. I'm trying to think of, like, I'm sure Josh Trank, who directed Chronicle, grew up with some games. Have those directors get involved with it, because it's quite clear that they can direct an action scene. They can, give us things that we want to see in a movie, and they can follow the game or reference the game in a way that we would want them to do it without ruining it.
They'll care about the game, whereas if you give it to someone maybe like James Cameron, who's going to be, well, I want to do this the James Cameron way, and that might not be the way you actually want your game presented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, even if James Cameron did play a lot of games, like, growing up as a director and everything, he just, I guess because it wasn't a part of his childhood since he's been around for a long time, or even like Ridley Scott or I wouldn't say Spielberg because I think he plays a lot of games with his kids, but um, it's just one of those things where they didn't grow up with it, so it's just one of those things where like, oh, this look kind of cool one day. I want to make a movie about it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, my kid was playing this game one day. I think that would be kind of cool if I did a movie off of it, kind of thing. And like, or even maybe that being said, you get interested in playing the game more, or something along that line. Do something that um, really makes it feel like you care about this game, and you really have this strong feeling that this certain storyline would make a good movie.
Right.
And then one of my last points I had here, guys, was expand upon certain things, um, and make sure that you have the game writer's approval with it. Rather than just saying, "Well, this, and this happened, so we can't do this in the movie." Maybe go to those game writers who originally wrote that script for that game, and maybe just approve with them. Just give them a call and say, "Hey, what if Crash Bandicoot had this characteristic to him that couldn't be shown in the games?" Or maybe Mario, or like, for example, maybe call up the guys who wrote the Mario Brothers games, and they can tell you, well, Luigi's scared of ghosts, and Luigi's Mansion is shown that he's more scared of things than Mario is. So throughout the movie, maybe make him more scared of things than Mario is. Or like, even if you look at the Mario movie, Luigi seems more courageous and more fun going than Mario did.
Yeah.
Like, Mario didn't want to go in the Mushroom Kingdom, Luigi did. Certain things like that, and they can say, well, Luigi was more cowardly in the games, though.
Yeah.
So expand upon certain things and make sure you get the games writer's approval in order to make it work well.
Yeah, and then I was thinking at the end, maybe the people who make your tie-in games can do the same thing. You don't have to make your tie-in games entirely about the movie, but that's a topic for another time.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share today, Jared, on here?
I think I'm good.
You did mention here it could work in reverse on games and for movies.
That's what I brought up, and that's really a topic. I mean, that it could work in reverse for the expanding on the backstory instead of the Avatar game where you play Jake Sully as an avatar, doing all the nature hero stuff. You can have Jake Sully Marine and how he ended up in his accident, but that's really a debate for how to make tie-in games better than.
Yeah, well, I guess another good example is like if you look at the GoldenEye game, they took an extra 2 years developing the game than the movie. They didn't say we have to have this game released the same time as the movie. They actually went in and say, what actually makes a good game? What would make this movie work well as a game, and not just, well, we wanted to make this game based off this movie. They actually went in, and as a result, it turned out it kind of gave birth to the first-person genre, first-person shooting genre, and that's kind of the game people always go back to when it comes to good first-person shooter games. So anyway, guys, like we said, this is kind of our ground rules we made that we would like to see happen with video game adaptations, and we hope that Jared and I see you next time.
Yeah.